Hi all, today I've got cool makeup on because I'm going to shoot my music video or a music video for one of my songs called Real to Me. It's on Spotify under Starling 2 words. Cool, so I want to talk about evolution. If we look at, and also I want to talk about the hard problem in science, and then I want to talk about consciousness. So if we look at evolution, it is important to note that it runs directly in opposition to what is called entropy. Now, entropy is the tendency for matter to convert to chaos if you leave it, right? And not the other way around. So an example of this would be if I put ink in water, a drop of ink in water, it will become blue water. No matter how long I leave that water, it will never then become a drop of ink and water again. It will always move towards the osmosis. It will move towards chaos. So the interesting thing about evolution, right, is evolution is the structuring of matter. It is the structuring of consciousness, and it runs in opposition to entropy. So if nothing is driving it, then this really does not make sense. You know, usually when you look at normal, the normal scientific empirical view on how, or the Darwinian view on how everything came to be, we're supposed to believe that, you know, after the Big Bang, we had primordial soup, and within this primordial soup, you know, different elements started to form and they clustered together, and then eventually this created complex life. And it's that saying where they say if you put a bunch of monkeys on a typewriter for all of eternity, at some point they will actually type Shakespeare. Now, this would make sense if entropy didn't exist, right? So entropy is the proverbial canary in the coal mine. So if you look at the hard question in science, right, so this has not been answered yet. If we look at the normal view of evolution, and the hard question in science is, how did consciousness arise from inert matter? How did consciousness arise from dead matter, right? And what's that saying in science? Give me one miracle and I'll give you the rest. It's the same with the Big Bang, you know, give me one miracle and I'll give you the rest. This is definitely a thorn in the side of the normal Darwinian scientists, because how did consciousness arise from matter? So if you look at theories of everything, right, theories of everything try to put all the forces together, right? So you've got your macro Newtonian science, and then you've got your micro quantum science, and these theories of everything, or TOEs, try to put together. So we have a whole bunch of theories of everything, string theory being one, M theory being another. There's also something called the eightfold lattice, which is pretty cool. You can go look at it. So what do they want to unify? They want to unify the strong forces, the weak forces, the electromagnetic forces, and the gravitational forces. Now, my problem with this is I think they're leaving out a fifth element. And the fifth element is not love, like with the movie. The fifth element is consciousness. Because if we propose that consciousness did not develop from matter, but that matter actually developed from consciousness, or with consciousness, as consciousness being an internal guiding force, then the hard problem in science is not a problem anymore. And I'm going to paraphrase here, but I think it's Rumi that said, consciousness sleeps in rocks, wakes up in plants, dances in animals, and sees itself in human beings, right? So if consciousness is added to theories of everything, and it is seen as baseline, right? So in other words, consciousness did not evolve from matter, but matter evolved from consciousness, then we actually move to a mind before matter universe instead of a matter before mind universe. And this would make sense if you look at the fact that space-time almost seems to keep us in a loop. You know, the fact that the speed of light is constant, or I don't know if it's a fact, the theory that the speed of light is constant, creates almost like a quarantine, because if we can't move faster than the speed of light, because our mass would become infinite, and that kind of keeps us here. And if consciousness is indeed viewing itself from all of these different perspectives, then thinking that yes, that basically matter evolved from consciousness would flip this whole thing around, and then we could look at these theories of everything and we could just add consciousness. So the electromagnetic forces, we all know what that is. Strong forces keep the nucleotides together, the weak forces, oh, I can't even remember, right? And then gravity, you know, we all know. Well, the interesting thing about gravity is if you look at, what do they call it? Multiverse. So multiverse theories, they have been looking for the graviton, right? And the thing about gravity is it's a bit weird. We still don't understand it, because there's the normal Newtonian way of understanding it, and then there is Einstein's way of seeing it as a curvature of space-time, right? So how Einstein understands gravity is, if space-time is a mattress, you know, this is an easy way to understand it, and you put a ball onto that mattress, the mattress will be dented. So if you put another ball on that mattress, you know, and it's moving around it, it will then go into this dent, and that would be gravity. Also, for those of you who are Trekkies out there, and Star Trek warp speed works by bending space-time in front of the ship, and then the ship is basically falling, right? Falling into this gravitational pull. The thing about gravity and the four forces that they try to weave together in theories of everything is that gravity seems to be a bit too weak. So there are theories that gravity actually is one of the forces that holds through the whole multiverse. In other words, it's in all the other parallel universes as well, and that's why it seems weak. So Nassim Haramein, I think is his name, and he's been looking at this. That's a really great person to look at with regards to this type of science, as well as I said, look at crystalline structures and the eightfold lattice. That's really interesting. String theory has proven itself to not be, you know, at the cutting edge, because that has been replaced by M theory. And an interesting thing that M theory says is that, so M stands for membrane, right? And then string, and then membrane, because string theory had, I think, 5 different calculations to you know, basically sum it up, and that's a bit embarrassing in science because you want one. And for all of those 5 to then be put together mathematically, 12 dimensions need to exist, and when they are put together, that is M theory, which is membrane theory. And in membrane theory, they say that 2 of these multidimensional membranes actually collided with each other, and as they collided, the Big Bang was shot into 3-dimensional space, which is pretty freaking awesome. Also, if we look at things like quantum entanglement, right? So I don't know if you know what quantum entanglement is. If you take the spin of quanta, right? I'm talking under correction here, but if you take the spin of quanta, so if you split quanta and you send one in the one direction, the other one in the other direction, the moment you change the spin on this side, the spin on the other side changes instantaneously, faster than the speed of light. So this does not make sense, because Einstein said nothing can move faster than the speed of light, and this is instantaneously. But if you have a flat Earth, so you have a 2-dimensional realm, and you've got 2 dots on there, or 1 dot, you split it, now you've got 2 dots. If you send the 1 dot in the one direction and the other dot in the other direction, if they actually become a 3-dimensional bangle that cut through this 2-dimensional space, then if you change the spin of the one side of the bangle, it would immediately change the spin of the other side of the bangle. So I do think that quantum entanglement is showing us that the universe is indeed multi-dimensional, and that we're only seeing 3 dimensions of a probable 12 or even infinite amount of dimensions. Now, thinking that matter evolved into consciousness in something that is this big, I think might be a very, very big mistake. So me personally, I believe in a mind before matter universe. And then you can go, okay, but what is mind? And this is the thing, mind or consciousness does not necessarily have to be structured, right? It doesn't have to think, it doesn't have to have language, but I do think that it is the fifth element. And if you go look at ancient scriptures talking about stuff like ether and plasma, right, and magic, I think that science really needs to incorporate some of the older sciences as well and question how it is viewed, the evolution of consciousness, because I don't believe that consciousness evolved from matter. I believe that matter evolved from consciousness. So I hope that makes sense. Have a lovely day, everyone. Bye.